I simply wanted to inform you that we will start in a couple of minutes because there is a problem with a few of your colleagues who have not been able to get a cap. It's not their fault, it's the fault of the municipality who doesn't increase the number of caps. But we'll start in anything in between 5 and 10 minutes. Sorry for this.
Test. I think I suggest you use it, so you'll be, you'll happy with that.
You know, my,
I think it's hard to, but I can.
There has also been in the recent, I think, Poland. There is not in this one, like Poland. I thought that we can speak. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's. You bet.
Of course. Okay. Fresh.
Fresh, and that's the part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Environment seems to be.
It's very, I mean, it really gives one of the approach, but also enlarging your arena.
Yeah.
There's lots of good things very inspiring. Yeah, that's the reason. Yeah. Ah, okay. Yes. Yes, it's more like the development project with that place. Yeah, but it's things people have no laughing and just very soft vegetable.
Yes. Good morning. As you can see, there's a session at 11:45 that has a representative of the participants on the list of speakers. We're looking for a volunteer to join the closing session. Is anyone interested? Yeah, those two already counted out. We need someone else to join the forces at the stage. We're giving you one last opportunity. Anyone? Bravo. Thank you very much. So if you can come forward, then we will discuss a little bit of details. And then after the coffee break, the final session, welcome you among the Patricia Gaspar, who will be connecting online, and Tom, we already know the closing components. Thank you.
I was not.
Yes. The opposite.
I'm here.
No. Take this one, yeah.
Okay. Once more, good morning to all of you. I hope that you had a nice rest, that you enjoyed the yesterday masterclasses, that you enjoyed the dinner. We are moving now to the last session. You will notice that we don't have all the participants in the room. As you may have heard, there is an old problem unresolved so far of lack of cabs in Pisa. This should sound as well as a warning for those who need a cab in the afternoon to get to the airport. You have to book it well in advance. I will provide you a few information in 1 second on how to do this. But first of all, after having greeted all of you, I have been asked to work in a new capacity, namely responsible of the lost and found office of the SUPORNA. We have been able to identify sunglasses, presumably females, a very nice watch, and the jacket, and the key of Pisa Tower Hotel. I don't reveal the number of the room. Those who own these activities, please, I put them here, pick them up. Second information I wanted to share with you is that you will receive an attendance certificate. You will receive, it will be on the table outside this room. It will be there in a couple of minutes. So feel free during the coffee break or afterwards to take your one. As you are so many, we will not distribute individually because we would lose too much time. They will be in alphabetical order, so it's quite easy to pick them up. And my third technical communication is that, we will finish around 12:15, and then as we have foreseen in the program, we will have, for those who remain a little bit longer, the possibility of having a lunch buffet. And those who need to go today to the airport or to the railroad station, I would like to recommend you warmly to book in advance the cab, to cross your finger that they will arrive on time. You can book the cab through the people at the door, at the entrance, the doormen at the entrance, ask them in advance, ask them to let you know the name of the taxi, because presumably, as many of you are leaving with the same planes, there will be several taxi arriving, crossing our fingers. For those who are at the Hotel Bologna, for those who are not at the Hotel Bologna, namely Duomo and Pisa Tower, you know how it works, what you have to tell to the cab driver, and this means that you have to pay nothing. You just mention the keywords which you know. For those coming from Hotel Bologna, you have not received yet, or you have received, it will be arriving in a short moment, an email with the instruction on how to deal with the taxi driver, and you have to give him the name of the agreement we have, so you are not supposed to pay. My last communication is that I have heard that unfortunately, due to a mistake of the persons at the Hotel Pisa Tower Plaza, they charged someone of you the tourist tax. I'm really sorry. They were not supposed to do this. They did a mistake. Those who pay them, please go to Matteo and we will reimburse you cash immediately. So Matteo has the money. Sorry again for this mistake. Okay, having said this, I would like now to pass the floor to Petra Faniero for the first part of our morning session, in which we will present a little bit the key findings of the different master classes, and then the program follows as you see on the screen. Petra, you have the floor.
Thank you, Andrea. I'll stay here because I know that Pekka and Kaiser are going to do a very interesting exchange about masterclass. So I'm just here to introduce the first session, which is a quick summary of the master classes. I think overall, well, I was involved in masterclass 4. I heard a lot of applause and laughter around in the various other rooms. So I'm assuming that people found it interesting and exciting and had fun. There were a couple of lost participants as well, but in the end, they did find a masterclass of their choice. And I also heard that people found it, they were attending also part that perhaps they were not so used to. International law was mentioned, the first masterclass with only 2 people who had experience with law. So, it's great to see that people are also discovering new elements. But I will not go on further. But perhaps I'll introduce Pekka and Kaiser, who are going to provide you with a summary of all 6 masterclasses. And then afterwards, so they will talk you through it. And then afterwards, JP will manage then a session on, the feedback and what we find, etc. So, okay, Kaiser, please.
Okay, good morning to all. Also from outside, and first of all, many thanks for the facilitators of the masterclasses. That was very, I would say, intensive and well done. Also, thanks for the organizers for making us volunteering to take a presentation this morning. So we start with the number 1 masterclass, managing available information and climate and weather changes. So the aim is to understand the IPCC reports and the results, and how the decision makers, how you can make the decision makers to see what needs to be done in the near future. Understanding how the weather and climate data can be used to assess the weather risk and design adaptation policies and organize rescue services. The decision maker is interesting, or the policy maker is interesting group of people. How you define policy maker? Are they the politicians, or are those guys the public servants in the ministries or agencies? So how you define it? So what's the target group, and how you influence to those guys? That's very interesting discussion. This what we had in the master class number 1. And also in the 5, the same thing. So the key issues discussed, information available in IPCC reports, challenges for scientists creating tools that can be effectively used by decision makers. So how you put the information in the product that can be understood by policymakers and decision makers. It's in principle the basic information management. what kind of reports and products you produce in the end, who is the decision maker, and how you tailor-made the products to different decision makers. They definitely don't need all the same. So that's interesting. And also challenges for decision makers in devising policies that are based on accurate weather and climate related information. So we start with the case study number 1.
Yeah, and then I jump in because I was also part of this session, but in the afternoon. And I think we had really interesting discussions. We were both policymakers as well as researchers and trying to identify also where we have the gaps in communication. That was actually not the main purpose of the session, but still it was a good benefit of it. So talking about flash floods and drought in the Mediterranean region, the information that this group in the morning found out was missing in the IPCC report was the managing conflicts between different stakeholders, that could be a really crucial issue. Historic and previous lessons learned by different organizations was another thing, especially previous flash floods events. And they also identified that it's a need for more specific and local data in the sub-regions. And that was exactly the same thing as the group in the afternoon identified too. We also discussed the cost effectiveness estimation of policies, maybe inspired by the session number 6 that some of us was attending in the morning. So it's interesting also to see how we build bridges between these masterclasses. The group in the afternoon also identified the hazard-specific need. When digging deeper into different fact sheets, we also need to be more aware of what one specific hazard can cause on smaller areas. And that's also important when dealing with local and regional authorities. As both me and Pekka are operational from time to time, sometimes we find ourselves in the middle of nowhere, trying to also describing what's caused maybe some disaster or what kind of possible event we can see in the future. And then in the end, more user-friendly explanation on interactive tools created by IPCC. For some of us, it was the first time that we used these tools. And some of the tools might need some more time or explanation or both to be able to use them more properly in the future.
And we go to the case study number 2, vulnerability mapping of the urban heat island effect. Key challenges, well, we look at the areas, which is about the size of the one of the case studies done here in Italy, Flanders, Belgium. And we work around this scenario. Look at the data availability, discuss about the data availability, what are the vulnerable groups and how you can find the data of those groups. The scope was 5 to 15 years from now. So to prepare for the future heat waves and what are the main issues to think about. Defining the proper scale of analysis, regular grids, administrative boundaries, municipalities, even inside the municipalities, the blocks, streets, etc. Also the regions and sub-regions. So we look at the right target group and in the end, of course, I would say that's always, and as a humanitarian relief worker, the human life is always number 1. But of course, very soon after that comes the livestock, properties, etc. So population, production, biodiversity. The industry, very important. Like in Flanders, you have the port of Antwerp, and how to protect that because it's very, very important for the economy. And we saw these examples also from the nice film from PISA Plus. Simplicity, again, easy to understand. So how pictures are always good. They tell a lot, but how to really put the information in a form that it's easy to understand and translate to the actions. And of course, when you put a lot of data into the information products, it's very accurate, yes, but very difficult to understand for policymakers, or this is even for decision makers. So what's the difference between the decision makers and policymakers and politicians? That's interesting discussion. And somehow I feel working for the Ministry of Interior, I feel that I'm kind of implementing the policy decisions. At the same time, someone may say that we are also policymakers. So it's a bit tricky. Yeah, and colony area, another case study. Key challenge is complexity and scalability, balancing accurate inputs again with easy to use products, user capacity regarding deployment and understanding. Delivering technical tool requires training for users. That's very clear. We have seen that so many times when you go to missions or you use the tools back home, same story, and getting the new version or new tool, always learning again. General is stability, geographic level of detail, local, regional, national, as we spoke, even if we go down to the blocks. Delivery format, and user friendliness. When you go to the mission, that's a key, that you have a very simple products what you can show in a mission. But in principle, the same story is back home when you talk with your authorities at port. So, masterclass number 2, please, Tasha.
Yeah, understanding and applying foresight in disaster risk management. And this seemed to be a really interesting masterclass, and we heard about the discussions that were made. Do you have that? But since none of us attended this masterclass, please feel free to jump in if you have something to add. Because this is, to me, a beautiful picture with a lot of colors and the dream of the new world in the middle. But I'm sad to say I can't give you that detailed explanation, but I think it's about the future risk. Am I correct? Yeah. And future risk and other outcomes, which seem to be crucial for us in the environment where we work. And it's about improved the relations and artificial photosynthesis between animals and plant slavery. And to see the risk of a monopoly of food production and societal unrest. It's also about spread of new diseases and loss of species and increased dependencies. The example number 2 was about modular manufacturing and internet crashing. Is there anybody out there? Is it zombie attack? Is this where it comes in? Because I know that you went wild in your imagination and that you were allowed to. So the risk identified were increased crime, riots, multipolar world, and EU having less power than disbanded. And I think you can all go through this one to find both your wild dreams, scenarios, and maybe solutions. Nobody wants to add anything? We move on to number 3.
Yeah, please.
Thanks. I am allowed to present the findings of masterclass number 3. Next slide, please. Yes, they are. No, the next one. Yes, 3. No, the next slide, please. Masterclass number 3.
She's going to present it, but if you want to present it, feel free to do so.
Yes,
Please.
thank you. Okay. So what was the aim of the class? The aim of the class was to experience firsthand the decision-making related to the different phases and scales of the DRM process and interpret the 3 different roles of scientists, decision makers, and hybrid experts. So basically, we were 3 groups. with 3 different scenarios, and every group had in one scenario a different role. So what was our main finding? Yes. First, it takes time to find out who we are and what it does mean to be a scientist, decision maker, or a hybrid expert. And sometimes it happens that people step out of the role, and many times it feels uncomfortable to be in the other one's shoes. So I used to be a decision maker, and as a scientist, I wasn't sure what was expected or what I should do. Next slide, please. Thanks. What are the lessons learned? We need to include more fields of science and research, social science, economics. The hybrid expert role led some to get curious, spread out, and ask the others for their needs, ask questions, while decision makers and scientists stayed in the bubble. So hybrid experts had or caused more interaction, which is definitely needed. And next slide. Thanks. So finally, what were our conclusions? A hybrid expert is a role you might grow into, or you might be asked to take in a public administration or in a scientific institution. It's not a job position. And the aim is to make those 2 communities, scientists and decision makers, working together for a common goal. Thank you.
Questions to us before? Tyson, please.
Yeah, let's move on. This one also seems really interesting, and we heard, as you said, a lot of laughter over there. Laughter normally is a result of good and creative discussions, so I was really pleased to hear that. It's about developing a balanced behavioral and risk communication approach that engages the public. And I think the word engage is really crucial, and it's also what the keynote speaker main points were about. First, we had the Professor Samuel Rufat, who identified gaps and considered gaps related to risk perception, to action, intention, action, and uncertainty prediction. And when thinking how to change people's behavior, remember how potatoes were once considered as disgusting and potentially poisonous, and that even the hidden secret could turn out to be a diamond. The fundamental rights were about that they also applied in disaster risk management and response. And me and Pekka, we discussed these keynote findings in the morning, and as when going on missions and suddenly you bump into media, local media, regional media, or international media, you always have to bear in mind your 3, 4, or here 5, as we heard Agostino Miozzo told us about preparation and bullet points to always remember, because we identify that we also always see the need of feed the beast, if you will call media as the beast. But the importance is to be the one who first speak when in a disaster management, because that person, that spokesperson is the one leading the discussion and leading the media work the upcoming days. It's also very important to be well prepared to only tell the truth and speak about what you know, and not guessing, never guessing. And also to follow the social media. When on a mission, that's really hard. You don't have time, but at least you need to have someone, or in our case, get help from ERCC or our other fellows out there to telling us what's going on in the social media world. And the last professor, Alexa Week from Mosner, talked about the differences between risk communication and crisis or emergency communication in terms of framing timelines, aims, and audiences. And be audience specific or audience adapted. That's one really crucial thing, we think, when it comes to both disaster communication, emergency communication, as well as risk communication. And also to, I wouldn't say play on emotions, but still handle emotions with care and describe them in really good terms, in both risk perception as well as emergency communication. Here, the professor talked about the role of affect and emotion in risk perception and decision-making in related to communication strategies. And last but not least, the role of storytelling in capturing people's imagination during risk communication, helping them envision future hazards and build resilience. The highlights from the interactive group work was what should be the key elements of the risk communication plan: to be strategic, to help to build trust, but also be specific on what we want public to do and what we want them not to do. To be creative in its development, and to co-create approach, including the citizens' private sector, and to build a prevention culture that starts in primary education. And sorry, I forgot to tell you that all these discussions were based upon the scenario of Arno River that we saw the first day of the masterclass. What will capture people's attention and maximize their engagement in the sense that they properly prepare for a potential crisis? Where available, have trusted spokespersons and key figure with charisma, and use storytelling, tailored approach, messaging, and channels for different target audiences, including the most vulnerable groups. And who? Is it organizations? Other stakeholders should be part of the risk communication plan. And then you have identified a lot of stakeholders, all relevant, I guess, but who could be used depending on the time frame. If I would just ask add what I think, that maybe you work more with others and then you add specific points from some of the more expert-oriented groups. Still important though. When it comes to emergency communication, the highlights from the groups were what will capture people's attention and maximize their engagement to follow the advices. It depends on how relevant and trustworthy the message is. Use trusted sources and provide links as well as hashtags, and develop where not in existence. Show empathy, consisting key messaging. Scientists, meteorologists, politicians, and responders. And coordinated local, regional, national, scientific, and responder messaging so that you will turn out to be more or less one message. And highlight authorities' roles in response and reassure the public that what can be done is being done. And then we come to what are the main do's and don'ts when communicating to the public in a crisis situation. The do's that look like the ones on the previous page: stay on the message, stay current, and follow the risk communication plan, but still be adaptive and flexible. And the don'ts: don't give conflicting information, don't give too much data and details, and be definitive on science, acknowledge that not everything can be known yet. And then last but not least, how to best link providers, users, and communicators of scientific advice in this situation where recommendations might be conflicting and fake news is interfering with common sense. Consistent messaging across all government, from state, regional, local, politicians, responders, scientific community. Coordinate the message with all stakeholders, with the group identified in the planning and in the preparedness phase. And then building trust in the whole cycle that makes it easier to trust the official message in times of emergencies and know who to trust and follow in an emergency. Thank you.
Thanks, Kaisa.
Maybe I have one. Yeah.
Yes, you do. Yes. Master's class number 5, understanding the role of international disaster law for scientists and policymakers. again, policymaker, who is the policymaker, how you define it. Aims provide general overview of international, regional, national, and legal framework on disaster risk management. Highlight the linkages among these different layers or applications, pondering the challenges of complex legal ecosystem. So we have around, well, more than 250 treaties, international treaties. Many of them are signed by multiple countries, but also treaties which are not really signed by all the countries. So what does it mean when you sign the treaty? Then you need to implement it, and it's somehow binding also in a national level. Then we talk about also the consideration of the hard law and soft law. Good example is the Sendai activities, which is kind of soft law, and then you have the hard ones. International disaster law, compliance with international human rights and global health law. We all know the history from the COVID-19 and the discussions around the human rights and how you can see the cities or restrict the movements of the people versus the human rights. How you balance these activities and how you, in what level you will put your measures. International disaster law provisions explicitly referring to the science policy interface, yes, and Sendai framework we already mentioned. Possibility of legal reform, including the new international instruments, pandemic treaty, ILC stands for
International Commission.
Thank you. And yes, draft articles. So challenges, need for a strong, coherent legal framework for effective governance. As being one of the, let's say, lawmaker at home, we don't oftentimes really think about the international aspects of the legislation what we are doing. That is, I have to say honestly, being involved in international activities quite a long time, still, I don't always think about the international elements when we do international legislation. Importance of multi and international disciplinary approach, including social sciences in designing legal frameworks, very important. Importance of fostering awareness of legal obligations through training and capacity building. Any disaster DRR, I think, disaster risk reduction measure, and especially risk analysis should have a solid scientific basis. Yes, that's quite clear. But again, we are coming back to the translation of those results. Reasonable safeguards and clear mandates need to be established for scientists and advisors in the context of transparency and clarity on legal responsibilities. So again, communication between those let's say two parties. Accurate and timely communication to the public, reaching all groups within society, especially vulnerable groups. And the communication is always, as Kaisa told, it's always a challenge. We need to look at the target audience and what is the format of the communication, what is your key message, what you want to get through. And especially when you deal with the media, that's always, it's always, beat the beast. It's always tricky. So how you can beat the beast is as you say, is a preparation. And I personally always have 3 bullet points in my mind. What is my key message? So it doesn't matter what the media is asking. They ask, what do you think? It's going to rain today. I say probably it's going to be sunshine in the afternoon. But EU is standing very firm in helping this country in emergency. So it doesn't matter what the media is asking. You have your own key message that you want to get through. Same goes with the same principles should be for the policy makers and the decision makers. What's your key message and very simple way? Try to get that through all the time. Yes, and then accurate and timely communication to the public yes, we talk about it, participation of key stakeholders, including vulnerable groups in planning and response, including the whole of society approach in a way, including everybody in the decision making. Importance of due diligence obligations across all phases of the risk management cycle. Remember the risk management cycle. Recognition that such obligations and dynamic evolving based on lessons learned. So we look at the scenario again, Arno River, and talk about the mayors and what he or she should do in this case, and possible claims for compensation of economic losses, including the tourist sector if we lock down the city. And if he follows the express civil protection, balancing the safety and other interests, then you may have some other challenges, like possible lawsuits against the local administration, the mayor, for the failure of adequately protect the population duty of care, including the right to life, which is the ultimate right for everybody. Potential non-compliance with international obligations to protect cultural heritage. In many countries, very, very important. Italy, very good example of that. And well, when we walk in the city, we somehow, it's like looking at a museum all the time. For at least for us, where the culture is a bit younger than Italy. But this approach is in line with the provide international disaster law, Sendai framework, PRR, on participation of stakeholders and with other human rights, right to property, right to work, right to education, etc. In any case, the lack of clear science-based disaster preparedness plan is a violation of international disaster law and national law. So you need to do the planning properly and update your plans. So when the disaster is in somewhere in the pipeline, it's also coming, you can start to implement those plans, which are based on, of course, your national legislation. But with your national legislation, you have always reflected the international legislation. As someone said in groups, there's a law in everything, and probably that is right. Kaisa, please.
Let's end this session with the masterclass number 6 about understanding the economics of disaster risk management and its valorization. And I was attending this one together with some really skilled participants. And it was so interesting because some of us was really new to the economics and the facts to count in numbers on the loss of lives and prevention. And some were really experts, and also the keynote speakers were really forcing this interesting discussions going on. And we also had to play a game, a real game, a computer game. And that's not always the case. We could really easily show if we failed or if we passed. That was also interesting. The key points from the keynote speakers and the discussions were that natural disasters have the potential to trigger large and persistent losses, impairing countries' financial conditions, not accounting for financial interlinkages between prevent and complete assessment of disaster risks for the macroeconomy. So adaptation is crucial to absorb the disaster-induced financial risk. One of the key challenges is to better define adaptation, and this could ease communication between science, policy, and general public. Though there is an extremely broad scope for adaptation, investments and actions are not to scale up the pace we would need. Both public adaptation and private adaptation tend to react little to the frequency of extreme events. Private adaptation initiatives are very responsive to psychological factors, the sense of fear, and less to better information. And climate-driven gentrification can, I don't know that really word, income and social inequalities, that it could really exaggerate the income and social inequalities. And this is one of the key challenges ahead for urban and coastal areas. That was really obvious in our discussions. So when starting this game, this computer game, we were divided into groups, and we had first to define a strategy to cope with what was going to happen. We knew that there was a flood coming on the computer. We knew that we need to have a strategy to get prepared, and then to build or to damage some houses, to evacuate people, and to build dams, walls, and dikes, and to be able to cope with this flood. And it all cost money. So we could really easily see how much we spent. The scientist-based groups typically spend more time debating the cost effectiveness of different adaptation options. But the group with prevalence of decision makers more often opted for an incremental approach, trial and error. And some of the groups also got the opportunity to do it twice, and that's also shown in the results. Only one group, fully decision makers based, reached all objectives, although a fully scientist-based group reached high score, successful adaptation. And despite the cost effectiveness, almost all groups limited or avoided use of retreat strategies, mostly because of their unrealistic nature, the low politician feasibility and social acceptability. Also, the use of structural defenses like walls or dikes was overall limited, and the groups often prioritized building, retrofitting, and elevation. But almost every group, like I think it must be 6 groups all in all, spent their entire budget prioritizing the protection of lives and providing less attention to economic damages. The vast majority of the groups concentrating on preventing high death tolls and people affected, containing spending was by far the objective indicated as least important. So we did spend a lot of money, and we did save some lives in the end. So that's, in some groups that was okay, in some it was a bit challenged and still have to improve some of the constructions. While all participants indicated a high need of improving collaboration between science and policymaking, scientists feel the need of improving cooperation with decision makers much more than decision makers do. That's interesting. That could be elaborated on a bit more. And this is the key points from the survey. There are a lot of slides in the end. I don't think I should go through them all. I don't know how we are on time. Time frame, yeah? We're okay? So I just show them quickly to you because I know you can read them. As you see, the least important was to avoid overspending, and we all succeeded on that one. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much also for occasionally having to improvise or interpret what you thought was on the slide, which I fully share. That was must have been quite challenging here and there. But I think also, well, thanks to all the coordinators for putting the slides together. I'm sure they will be made available as well for people to review them. And I think that concludes our first session. So I leave the floor and the mic and everything to you.
And table.
And the table too.
Good morning, everyone. I especially liked in the economics class in the game, there was one group, you don't have to name yourselves. They got a really high score because they restarted the game. So at some point of reloading, so to speak. So I don't think that's allowed in real life. But it's again time for a wake-up call, and that means Slido. So you are already here. They are very fast nowadays. So start getting your cell phones out, and or any other devices out. Our idea or objective for this point is naturally to discuss later on. We have a bit shorter Slido than yesterday. And again, I remind, if you want to stay anonymous, you can be civil protection guru, 1, 2, 3, whichever. We'll ask again a similar set of questions as before, a few cute warm-ups, and then going a bit more relevant from there. And how many slides was that? 26? 26, yes. So the Scuola or the organizers are thinking of producing an outcome document of it. And 26 pages might be a bit too much for some of you at least. So we will also do this session ask a bit of your help in the Slido in prioritizing them, since prioritizing is quite an important part of policy making when scientists send a 60-page paper that here is the result. Joking. And then, since we are already starting to get to know each other a little better, and I think you are starting to have more confidence, we will also have a mic now, and I will at some point ask a few of the masterclass chairs to maybe reflect on what we find out there. You'll also have the live Q&A in the back, so you can put your anonymous questions over there. I asked the person who asked, where is the wine? Not ask it again. But I think we have enough, so we can go to the first question. Then we will move on from the Lexit. So yes, very hard one again in the beginning. Who is claimed to have dropped 2 cannonballs from the tower of Pisa to experiment rabbit? Tip, all of those are EU programs. Copernicus is, as many of you heard, is the satellite program that Tom manages, not alone, but with his unit. Erasmus is the study program in Galileo. Which one is Galileo? Okay. Is it? GPS is Galileo. Okay. Thank you. Let's move on. Let's see if people got it correct. Okay, who guessed Copernicus? He's Polish, isn't he? Why would he be doing here? So, okay, let's move on. Second warm up. At least the climate people or who attend the climate workshop should know this, but it's a good common knowledge as well. So, how much warmer was global surface temperature in 2011, 2020 compared to 1850, 1990, according to the IPCC? With high confidence. So that's the reference frame you always hear in Paris agreements and so on. And 1.5 is our target for at the moment. But what has been the actual warming up between that? Yeah, let's go 68. 1.1 is correct. So at least quite many got it right hopefully from the climate workshop. We are not yet at 1.5, but I think they're estimating that we would reach it in a few years already. Next one, please. Oh, Jose didn't want to be anonymous because he was so confident of his skills. Okay, now a bit more into actual questions. So if you remember from the first day, we asked you what are the biggest challenges you have in communicating between scientists and policymakers, whichever you are. And the 3 top ones very clearly were trust, time, and communication. And those, I think, are a bit of a same equation, that trust requires communication and it takes time. So let's see what do you think? What do you think? How long does it take on average to build a trustful working relations with two-way communication between the 2 parties? And it's a free text, so we didn't force you into any. You can say 1 million years if you are very pessimistic about it, or if you're from a southern member state or participant, so you can say 2 seconds. But let's wait a while for this, so it might impact the lady discussers. And we are imagining that this summer school might not have been enough yet to build a trustful working relationship, but hopefully it will help on that. 44 have answered now. 44. Let's wait. Okay, let's go. I can get the word clock. It might have been, as I have been telling you, that you can blame me for everything, that I chose the wrong type of question type here. It's not a word cloud, but maybe we can go from the bottom to the top or whichever and look a bit of them. 1 day, long time, 12 months, days. Daniela saying years. She's an expert. 1 year. Who said 3? 3 what? Very long time. Yeah, 3 seconds, someone mentioned. 1 crisis long. Okay. So many of you already bonded during the taxi crisis in the morning, apparently. So 5 years. Okay, but I think it's even without the word cloud, I can start imagining it is around like at least months by most people, but let's say years at least might be a possible working relationship. Okay, I think we can, let's go to the next one. Okay. And now apparently I chose the right question for this one. So let's assess a little bit about the findings you had over there. You have a rating over there, I think from 1 to 5. And how relevant do you think are the findings of the summer school for your work, for your daily work? So now we are already going back to that we would like you to actually, that the summer school is beneficial to your daily work. That it was not only fun, as many people expect that it would be fun. 49, let's wait a bit again. And you can be critical if you're anonymous. 57, 59, yeah, 60. So let's see how critical are you. 4, I think it's a pretty okay score. I don't want to tap myself on the back, but yeah, I think it's many were saying during the days that that not all the master classes are your cup of tea, and it's very understandable. Not many of you might not have gotten what you wanted, but I really like the quote that there was on the law class, that one participant had a eureka moment, that law is everywhere. But if you look through the slides, I think in almost every one of them there was cross references. The law requires communication, climate adaptation requires money, and so on. So don't think you will become an expert only via this summer school on all of the issues, but hopefully you will at least a little bit understand other parts of the work. For example, when your comms personnel comes asking you quotes for a magazine or something, and you're working on your analysis, and you don't want to talk to the comms personnel. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And as mentioned, we would like a bit of maybe helping on the prioritization of the findings. The 26 slides, maybe we can get it to 25 slides at least. So what part of the findings could be especially beneficial and actionable in improving the creation or use of evidence for policymaking in your daily works? Again, in your actual law, did you already find something? You can. It's a. Hopefully, it's a word cloud this time. So if you find, I mean, it can be a really small one. That I heard someone saying that they found like little tools they didn't know about in the past. Or maybe you can use the economics game in something, or whichever pops into your mind. Maybe that's, did you find something that you can use in, let's say, not maybe next week, but in your daily work that was beneficial and action. And let's wait a little. To allow our participants to go through what happened last couple of days. In the meantime, I already asked, I mentioned to a couple of the masterclass chairs already that I'll be coming to you, or we will be coming to you with a microphone. So it will be after this one. And we will put the live Q&A after this one as well. So you can start prepping questions, and they can be, you can ask anything you want, and I will try to direct in the right direction. So everything to Kai's side. That was a joke, so don't be rude.
We're ready for everything.
If you can be kind to me and laugh. Let's wait for 50. Let's wait. We are not moving forward until we have 50. And there's a coffee break in your planes, and I will call the carabinieri to close the doors soon. So. 46. 3 more volunteers. 4 typing. 6. Okay, carabinieri threat was successful. We are waiting for the awkward 2 people. Finish the. I was going to say no novellas, but okay, if you found a lot of beneficial stuff, it can be a novella too. 50. Let's open the first. Oh, foresight has been the most beneficial. Quite a clear margin. Communications is second over. I don't know if that's referring to the communication masterclass itself, because in many parts communication was mentioned and was discussed. I don't know how the smiley is over there. That is a third biggest apparently. There's a lot of people put the smiley over there. What else? Storytelling is kind of relating to the communication as well. Vulnerable groups. Are you referring to yourselves or other people? Stop disasters game has a mention over there. Still thinking someone was being honest. Role of hybrid experts, risk communication, policy. Defaulting. Not sure what was a. Make friends before you need them. That's a very good quote, actually. Network is mentioned there. Sources. There's at least one participant typing, so let's see if there's more coming. Communication is mentioned. Okay, foresight is one term that can be easily put over there, but there's a lot relating to the communication too. Different ones that are not catch up by the word cloud. Personal relations is the business. I don't know if that's referring to the Matteo, and Matteo has the money quote. Trust. And there are still people typing, and I think it's very, I don't know, pertinent findings over here. So let's wait for that, and we can use them with the discussion. And don't worry, we are planning to be a bit shorter or end it a bit quicker this time. Okay, maybe let's stop there, and the foresighters might foresight that I'm gonna ask you maybe first to reflect a little bit on these results. Jacqueline, I at least asked. Can we get the mic, Jacqueline, over there? And Jacqueline, you don't have to tap yourself on the back, but could you maybe assess a little bit why is foresight such an important issue, or why is it popping up here as an action plan? You can also comment on reflect a little bit on other things, please.
Okay, good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you for presenting those 2 slides. You could probably tell we thought that we were presenting them ourselves, so maybe it was difficult to understand some of the conclusions we put on that slide. But we're very happy to see this. I mean, foresight is a bit of a trend in itself at the moment. preparedness and thinking about the long-term future is on everyone's mind, especially with regards to crises. It used to be something strategic way of doing planning that was restricted to businesses. Now it's becoming more widespread. One of the key things that I think when we were discussing at dinner last night, that I realized people got through in the masterclass is foresight is not necessarily a report. Foresight is a process. It's a selection of tools that you need to choose from to help you when you're doing science-advised policy and when you're doing planning. So it helps you to think about long-term futures, to think systemically and try and avoid bias and bring in lots of different broad participatory views. So it's great that we've had this opportunity to discuss that with you. We had Clarissa Rios-Rojas, who is an academic, and she opened the masterclass talking about governance of existential risks and global catastrophic risks. So we looked at some pretty wild, imaginative possible futures that we would like to avoid. And we tried to meet people where they are and give a little introduction to some of the most commonly used foresight methods and some of the thinking behind it. So I'm glad to see that those ways of thinking presented is there on the board and that people liked it. The futures wheels that we did, the idea is to structure some conversations about emerging signals of change and where they might develop to in the future. So we had discussions, 5 different groups, discussing a mix of potential futures that could happen and some of the impacts. So the cause and effect of the developments of these emerging ideas. And so future wheels are accessible, they're quite easy, and I think people, after being a little bit uncomfortable, understood the idea that we're looking at consequences and we're looking at potential future risks. In our team with Greta and the rest of our colleagues who work on future risks, we're very interested in wildcards, things that might not seem important, but then when you look at the consequences, they might be very undesirable. And so we will be using these future wheels in some scoring and some analysis later. So we'd like to thank everyone for their contributions there. And hopefully we can get some ideas for planning and action from some of the insights we get with these results. Anything to add, Rachel? No?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and it was great. We enjoyed being outside. It was very inspiring. Fresh air helped. Enjoyed it mostly.
Now that I had a bit of time to assess the word cloud over here, I think many of these that are popping up are very cross-cutting. That let's say like law and economics and climate are very, like one team, but what's popping up are the most cross-cutting skills. And then on the communication part, does Samuel want to maybe reflect on that? Samuel, I'm not. Would you like to open up a little bit about that? For example, like, do you think it's only because of your masterclass, or is it communication is a cross-cutting issue?
Alexa,
Alexa, you want?
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Well, I have to say that I'm surprised to see storytelling. I mean, communication doesn't surprise me, but that storytelling is up there relatively prominently surprised me because I'm a cognitive neurologist, and so I wasn't necessarily expecting that. I think in our, so that was the class 4, I think we tried to deal with some what we might want to call the wicked problems of disaster communication, of crisis communication, and risk communication. For example, to how to get people's attention in a situation when, you're not in the middle of a disaster. How do you, with regard to foresight, how do you actually prepare people, for possible disaster, and how you might use storytelling in order to get their attention, in order to engage them, help them visualize, imagine something that may happen to them in the future so that they get prepared and build resilience. I think that was an important one. Another one that we discussed in terms of communication of clusters on keynote, I think was very important there, is how do you can communicate in a really, really crowded media state and information state where everybody is talking all the time. And how do you then also deal with disinformation? I think that was another one that was quite important. And to go back to Samuel's work, we also discussed the problem, the gaps that you have, and that's, I think, crucial in climate communication, climate change communication more generally, but also when you're talking about disaster communication more specifically, is when you, how do you bridge that gap between that people are actually aware, they are informed, you know, you're doing everything right, but then they don't act on that. They don't do what they're supposed to do. That's, I mean, at least in climate change communication more generally, it's a huge problem. And clearly also in crisis communication. So we were kind of chipping away at those problems. You know, you have the one-on-one, 101 on how you are supposed to communicate, but what do you do when it doesn't work? And whether storytelling can at least be maybe part of that solution, making it a little bit easier. And our participants, I thought, were really great in coming up with creative solutions, coming up, you know, going beyond the usual and how you can engage the public, especially how you could, for example, you know, reach elderly people or reach people with disabilities or reach people who don't speak the language in the city, full of tourists, for example. So, you know, how to engage hotel owners, restaurant owners, so that they are prepared in the case of an emergency and they can help with the communication. So we had actually a lot of different creative solutions to deal with problems, you know, that seem to pop up again and again and again, and that are not easily solved by, you know, what you just learned how you should communicate. You're trying to go a little bit. So thank you very much. It was very enriching to me.
For the record, this is the second time Alexa is surprised that her work is actually important. Maybe on the third time she will believe me already. So. Let's, in the meanwhile, Chiara, let's open the live Q&A in the back, since I think everybody has taken enough pictures of this already, and it should stay in the system too. But let's also take a, can we clear that's yesterday? Can we clear it? Yes. Is this? But there was also hybrid experts were mentioned, and I think I will then still take the hybrid experts masterclass chairs. I already asked, Daniela is looking at me worried, but I will put Daniela on the spot first. So Marcia, would you like to reflect on that?
Okay. Yes. No, the hybrid expert masterclass started to be of interest during the opening, you know, because of this curve. And we reflected on the importance of terminology and the fact that every community is kind of attached to its own meaning to the term, but it is important to be open-minded and listen what is the meaning from someone else. And this is actually around, we can start to speak about it from the terminology point of view, but it applies to all the domain of knowledge. You need to be open and curious and have an active listening of the other components of the systems. And only in that way you become a hybrid expert when you build the bridge. So it was quite interesting to see the participants, maybe a profile of a scientist, finding him or herself in the shoes of a decision maker and seeing the science, you know, component saying, well, if you want more data on this, I need funds. I need to have budget to pay my researchers. So, and this, you know, putting the roles upside down and making each and every participant reflect on which are the boundaries within which I have to take a decision, I have to provide an information. It is it's a very good experience also for us. I mean, this is the third implementation of the same design of masterclass. We are always learning from the new participants, and especially I have to say for this edition, we had professionals, so there was no one teaching to others and others learning. I mean, it was a two-way dynamic. We came up with a lot of questions in the end, very little replies, but I hope a little bit more of an awareness on the boundaries, on the challenges. And we discussed a lot of very interesting topics. I enjoyed a lot. I hope it was the same for the participants.
Thank you, Marcia. We now got the Q&A up. Should be right? Yes, yes. Finally, you can start putting in questions. Since there was a bit of you couldn't put them yet, and we are lacking questions. I noticed on the first day there was Arthur, I'm going to address it to you. There was a question on how is the Commission actually trying to feed research in the Horizon 2020 programs. Maybe Tom can also answer that.
Which research?
Yes.
So, I mean, thank you for the question, whoever asked it. I think in general terms, of course, when we are doing the programming of the Horizon research activities, there are broad consultations taking place as part of the process. And of course, the Horizon goes across all the different disciplines, and I can only speak for those that know, so it's security research, so FLAFTER 3, and more specifically, disaster resilient societies, sub-FLAFTER section of it, because this is the one that is the most pertinent to the work that we do in DGA. And of course, we try to have understanding of what's going on in the research community already out there in the member states. We try to identify what are the needs and gaps that we on the European level can try to address. And we also have established, as the European Commission, a community of European research and security studies, community of European research and security. Is that what the acronym stands for? Because I always confuse with the names and acronyms. But SERIS, so this is a body that allows us as the European Commission, it's a group chaired by colleagues from DG Home, that facilitates conversations with the broader stakeholder community. But as part of the process, we have also dedicated the SERIS expert group, with whom we are also discussing different research needs that we can try to translate into programming and then effectively turn into what you see as calls for proposals that are being published by the European Commission, but then effectively turn into different research projects that many of you are involved in. Because I had a conversation with several of you of different projects, not only from Cluster 3, but also, for example, fire prevention projects, Cluster 6, which is the climate, the Green Deal clusters. So that's effectively what we're trying to do. And on top of that, of course, and then here maybe I can hand over to my colleagues from the Duke Research Center. So of course, the vast body of research that we do in conjunction or in support in relationship with the research that is also conducted as part of the Horizon. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I add a couple of words. So like Arthur said, there's many ways of programming the research. And it's very complicated too. Now, there's a big pot of money for research, but there's many people interested. So how can you get all of that together in there? And there's different consultation groups and all these things. So please do participate in those if you can. But I think the Knowledge Network and also from our side, the Knowledge Center are also tools that can help in this. So if we build a community here of people that are connected. You know now after one meeting, perhaps after 6 months, several of you have been here for 6 months, so we are almost friends now. We trust each other. So we build a network of trusted people now. So if you have ideas, if you have what you think, you know now already what the areas are, maybe storytelling, foresight, but many other things. They can be fed up. No? They can be fed up to the Knowledge Network, up to us at the GRC in the Knowledge Center. Now, what can that do? Well, we are connected in the Commission to the many DGs, to the many people that are actually designing the programs. Behind that are normal people that are overloaded, that are, that have many jobs. They change jobs a lot, and it's very big challenge to come up with very, very good projects all the time. So let's use these channels very well. No? We're here, we can make sense of it. This is a more permanent structure, so I'm very happy to also play that role to help there. As some of you know, the JRC is not participating anymore in projects, even if we would very much like to be part of all the projects. We can't, of course. But the JRC now has a new role of trying to help design the projects very well. And I think that's a good role because we have a long, say, memory. We work directly with many of you. So that's a very good role. So please use this channel too. And we're very happy to work with you on bringing the ideas that are maybe not topical, but more also long term or more complex and all in the research programs.
If I may, sorry, quickly
You may.
compliment, because the Horizon projects, Horizon research that is happening, that's of course a multi-million opportunity to dive into a very complex world of science and research and so on. But what we also have in DG ECHO is the knowledge for action and intervention preparedness, which is a dedicated funding opportunity that is meant to support transition from research into application while collaborating closely with civil protection authorities. Because this is a focus for us in DG ECHO, that there is a close collaboration between the scientists and the work of policymakers, decision makers, operations. And so we do fund as a DG ECHO also projects for both prevention and preparedness that can also address some aspects that could be of interest to all of you. This is an annual call, usually being published in February, with a deadline at some point in late spring. So if that's of interest, you can also reach out a little more. We can also, we're happy to provide more information on that. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a very good point by Nick that for aggression, I need coffee. I understand that many of you said yesterday that it has been quite intensive. There's still good questions over there. Maybe I'll be able to forward to the right persons. But would anyone from the participants like to take the floor with a mic too, or is it that? Please raise your hand up if anyone would like to reflect. But I'm very understanding if triple espressos are needed. Okay.
It's like coffee's needed for.
Well, let's do let's handle these two questions. The person who has the nickname GDPR has been already banned from the event. He was, I think, asked a wine question yesterday. But let's handle these two questions, and let's take the easy one first. Do you foresee or already set a specific topic dedicated to growing role of AI and decision making for DRM? And I think it relates a little bit to that. Arthur, do you wanna? Because naturally we are already thinking about the next series, and for example, this event's the masterclass, the choices were based on previous needs assessments. But would you like to reflect on that AI, and if there are any AI experts in the participants, please raise your hand up so we can ask you to be a facilitator next year.
I don't know if I'm an expert. Who is an expert in this disrupting technology? Changes every day, I would say, no? But obviously, knowledge is in the title of this workshop in summer school, and the concept of knowledge is also transforming. We know that there is a new knowledge that is arising from this. I call it artificial intelligence, but it collects many things. But there is the need of entering into this mechanism from a technological, but also from a policy point of view. I don't know if there is a specific topic dedicated to this, or it is just a bit everywhere and nowhere. So I don't know what is the perspective from your point of view.
Thank you, Tommaso. I would say that when we were preparing the summer school for this year, we had a very difficult choice to make, because we had so many ideas that we had to then narrow down, effectively provide you with a sensible program that is also doable within the limited time that we have. So hence the proposal for the master classes. But the topic of AI and new technologies and the innovation in the interface of policy and science, of course, came up. And it's definitely a space for us to innovate program itself for the next edition. We're not there yet. We've been focused on organizing this session. But I do welcome, I think we all do welcome your ideas. If you have some proposals for the potential topics to be implemented as next edition of the summer school, there will be a dedicated evaluation just before fall, right? So we'll have to wrap up soon. And there will be a space, I assume, I'm looking at Chiara and Luca with open suggestions, where you'll be able to provide your feedback there on ideas to be developed for the future. Because our intention, and maybe I'm anticipating what we're saying in the closing remarks, is that this becomes a recurring event. We are not yet sure what will be the frequency of that, but we want it to be organized again so that we continue the conversations that we started today in a different setting with different participants, perhaps, but the conversation that is very valuable from our perspective, and we wanted to finish here.
Sorry, I'll ask you to answer the last question. Again, there was a good question on could we have the list of participants, and so I'll go through a little bit of those modus later. But what will the Commission do with the outcome of the summer school? It's a very easy question.
First, we have to compile them and digest them in a format that will be appropriate to what we've been discussing about in the last day and a half. Because I couldn't help but notice that every single session mentioned communication elements. So we make sure that the outcome that summarizes first the knowledge that was shared and discussed in the session, but also is complemented by some good practices that you all brought forward, that you all mentioned during the discussions in the master classes. The good practice in the interface of policy and science. So that you can use those good practices, to maybe adapt them or directly use in your own daily work. And so we are hoping that this document that will be ready towards the month of June, towards the end of the month, and then that document that we will share with you accordingly. And we invite you to share this document even further, because we want the knowledge that is being discussed here, produced here, to be used beyond those walls of the summer school. So in a brief, that's what we are planning to do with those outcomes in the immediate timeline. And of course, we want to learn from our experience here to make the next edition better. So
yes, yeah, and naturally, since it's finalized document, it affects a lot of our internal processes on what kind of teams are gaps are needed and so on. When is the next season? Can someone who is GDPR stop? Could we have a list of participants? Again, I am to blame. We forgot to put it in the GDPR or the privacy policy that we can share your emails, but we will later on contact you again via email. We have your emails, but we are not allowed to share your emails and functions between each other. And there is a knowledge network platform where we will then migrate and dump all of the documents and then presentations and so on. And we will in the email also ask you to register over there and so on. So that will come later. But yes, definitely you can have that. It's a bit of a hard to network if you don't have it. Yeah, there are thank you for the thanks. There are lots of thanks. But I think we will go to Maria Joa. We will now have the official evaluation of the anonymous official evaluation. Maria Joa will.
I can speak. It's actually nice to look people faces and not their backs. So we have sent an email to everyone with a link to the evaluation survey, to the feedback form. And you can also, it's arriving, it will arrive, the QR code. So you can fill it now. This is also always the most exciting part of any event, and everyone is looking forward to fill in the survey. So we thought we might as well just allow some minutes so you guys can fill it in before leaving, and then it will be done as soon as the QR code arrives. And I would just take perhaps Arthur's words, just the evaluation is important, your feedback is important, so we can help, as it will help improve future editions. And we have organized it in two parts, so the logistical arrangements and organization, but also content-wise. So your satisfaction with the way the content was presented and whatnot, but really use this opportunity to provide and to share the positive things, the things that worked well, and all your recommendations, suggestions, remarks, anxiety. No, I'm kidding. All your thoughts on how can this edition be improved. Okay, it will come. Okay. And thank you.
Maria Jo forgot to mention that you will not go on a coffee break until the survey is finished. So yeah, and Pekka and Kaisa here can start showing a good example. That can you also fill the survey? So I'll reiterate if it was unclear, you should have an email already on the survey, and then we'll have a QR code in the back as soon as we have it. That you can also get into. Okay, and yes, we got the QR code over there, and naturally, once you are finished, you can see they are very close to getting ready to coffee break. So you can once you're finished, and only once you come here and show that you have finished it, you can go to the coffee break. Head over there. Andrea, do you want to say anything else? Did I forget something? Likely I forgot. Okay, I will, in the meanwhile, I will also officially close this session and we will be reconvening at 11:30. The agenda says 11:45, but we will do it 11:30. To get a bit flexibility more on it. And I would very much like to thank all of the participants. I know you are very tired and are yearning for the triple espressos waiting for you there. But maybe while you're filling the surveys, you could give yourself an applause. It's been very easy for me and Arthur to just be dancing monkeys and go look at you and take pictures of you, but I think you did the heavier part of it. So maybe applause to yourselves and then. No, I see the word, but other I don't know. Yeah. No, I think if I were one of that, but I'm not. That's that. Ah. Ei ole muuten huomioon, että ottaminen huomioon. Sitten ollaan väärässä. Joo. Joo, se on vaikka se on se lentoilu vielä vaikeaa. Nice job.
Welcome back. Alicia should be joining. Let's see her. This is. Also. Alicia should be joining. Yeah, she's okay. Not getting very, but it is very nice. Okay, may we start again this closing session of the summer school. Welcome back to this final session. Before starting the session, I would like just to remind that the Lost and Found office is still open. For those who have lost a watch, sunglasses, and the jacket has been picked up, they are there, please pick them up. Those, you have seen that there are the attendance certificates which are on the table, please take your one. before leaving, because I know that maybe a few of you will have to leave before the end of this session. I am very, very pleased to see Patricia being present. As you know, this is the closing session in which we have foreseen 3 interventions. First of all, we will give the floor to Patricia Gaspar, the Deputy Minister of Interior of Portugal in charge of civil protection. Patricia, we are very, very pleased and honored that you have been able to join us. Patricia wanted to stay here throughout the whole 3 days, and everything was organized, but at the very last moment, she had a very important meeting today at the National Parliament, and therefore in any case, she demonstrated how much she was interested in this summer school as she offered to do her presentation online. After Patricia, I will give the floor then to one representative of the participants. And then I will pass the floor to Tom de Greve, acting head of Disaster Risk Management Unit of the European Commission Joint Research Center. And then there will be 2 words of closing. If you don't mind, I would like now to pass the floor to Patricia Gaspar. And once more, Patricia, thank you very much for joining us. We feel really very honored and pleased. Patricia, you have the floor.
Hello, Andrea. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Wonderful. So hello, everyone. Hello from sunny Lisbon. Good morning. It's really a great pleasure to be in this session and to finally be able to join you. First, let me thank the organization of this summer school in the person of Andrea Guthrie for the honorable invitation to address this closing speech. It's really a great honor to be with you. In fact, as it was said until a few days ago, everything was scheduled to be with you in Pisa physically for these 3 days. But I was called to the National Parliament today for a hearing on the preparation of the forest fire season. And these calls, as you can imagine, are non-negotiable. So that left me only with this choice to guarantee my participation online. So thank you so much, everyone involved, for their patience and also for the flexibility that actually enabled me to give this speech. So having said that, and thank you again, everyone, let's move on to the topic that brought you to Pisa. And in this regard, I have to start with a very positive note to the fact that the European Commission and specifically the DG ECHO have given this importance to a topic on the priority list of the different national and international agendas. This is really a topic that should concern us all. There is no doubt that the world is changing in a very, very fast rhythm. The challenges in our societies today, many of them truly complex, force us to look at what surrounds us in a different way. What we have taken for granted for decades in Western societies has either already disappeared or is undergoing profound changes. And most likely, ignoring these changes will lead to the failure of our societies. Climate change, the weight of excessive urbanization, the cleavages between North and South in social, but also in human development, extreme poverty, migratory movement, the proliferation of populism on state and also on non-state movements, cyber dependencies, and the shift in social and human values are just some of the risks that are changing our lives, sometimes in a very discrete ways. Individual and collective safety and the preservation of human life are 2 of the objectives that raise to the social spotlight, largely the result of changing perceptions that have been generated over the last 5 decades. Gradually, countries until now considered safe and almost immune to what was taking lives around the world saw the scenario change drastically, destroying the feeling of safety with which we lived during these past years. We are now witnessing practically alive terrorist practices in European cities and also in the United States, lives drowning at the gates of Europe, fires that destroy in a few hours lives, our environment, and also our patrimony. We as citizens must increasingly assume our share of responsibility in this process of social change. And I think it is now essential more than ever to understand and to incorporate the shift, betting on greater flexibility in public policies, which must be closer to the real needs of the population, and above all, to be innovative. I truly believe we urgently need more flexible processes based on institutional trust. We need to place all technological innovations at the service of public interest. We need to implement easier and faster decision-making processes based on individual accountability for everyone involved. And we need to consider those that are the real needs of citizens and of our communities. And if these assumptions are important in general public administration, if we think exclusively on critical areas such as safety, security, and defense, they assume a crucial dimension. Being one of the noble areas of state activity, individual and collective safety is today a precious asset, where expectations are very high and where there is actually no room for failure. Safety, at least in most countries, is a constitutionally guaranteed right, and states must always be up to the greatest challenges, responding with level, effectiveness, and efficiency to the legitimate expectations of the citizens. And it's in this context that we have a fundamental conclusion. No country will be able to move forward alone. International cooperation is the unavoidable way to ensure the right adaptation to the new reality and to the enormous challenges of the future. And we will only be well when we are all really well, which implies a special attention to the most vulnerable countries, the poorest countries, small island states, and all those who need help to break the cycle of vulnerability, sometimes fueled by successive misfortunes and very often by multidimensional crises. The world is today interconnected, and the only viable approach is actually a global one. The European Union, but also the United Nations, are two organizations that have played a very important role in this shift, encouraging the development of different national policies, creating support mechanisms, advocating on this issue, and bringing change to the different corners of the world. I had the personal privilege of witnessing the enormous work that DG ECHO has carried out in this matter for the past 20 years. And my country, Portugal, has been one of the great beneficiaries of this policy. And I also had the opportunity to participate in the last midterm review of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction that took place at the headquarters of the United Nations in New York just 2 weeks ago. And on this occasion, we took good note of all the progress made since 2015, when the framework was adopted. But it was also clear to everyone that there is no time to lose, and that the next 7 years will be absolutely decisive. In a very pragmatic way, I think that we should all work based on aligned priorities, because only with a frank and real combination of efforts, it will be possible to improve, to have territories that are better prepared for the impact of natural events, more informed communities, more focused institutions, and a safer planet for us, but also for the future generations. We must cross this Sendai Framework agenda with the goals for sustainable development, the SDGs, and even with the international strategy for the adaptation to climate change. These are 3 instruments that must be coordinated and cannot be seen isolated from each other. All the community working in civil protection, risk governance, emergency management, we must break the silos. We must bring together all areas of governance and create bridges between academia and science, civil protection, prevention and risk management services, because we need decisions which are based on knowledge. We must bring land management closer to civil protection to ensure that we are able to adapt our cities and our territories to the new realities and risks. We must guarantee that we rebuild without the same mistakes, the BBB concept, build back better. And we also need to guarantee that territorial planning integrates at all times disaster risk reduction policies. Each time we build an hospital, we must look at this hospital not only today, but for the future. Is it being built in a safe place, in a safe area? Is everything being accounted? Do we have a disaster risk reduction policy attached? These are the things that we really must consider in the future. And we must also ensure that there is funding for disaster risk reduction policies. Financing is critical. And for this, we must involve all dimensions of society, both public and private entities. We must ensure that in these policies, no one is left behind, and consider all population groups, the elderly, children, women, people with disabilities, everyone. No one can be left behind. We must be able also to use nature itself to develop and implement credible and sustainable solutions. In the end, I think that we all must be able to believe that we still have time, that it is worth, and that we will be able to do it. We are all responsible for this process, but we, people who actually work in this area, undoubtedly have a greater responsibility. I truly hope that these days in Pisa have been enlightening to you, but also enriching, and that above all, they may have contributed to this great objective, which is to guarantee the continuity of ourselves, of our world as we know it, and also of the next generations. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, really, for your words. I have taken note of many keywords you have mentioned, and I am so happy that we noticed that many of them have been taken into consideration during our different master classes. The changes, the urgency to react, the need to adapt quickly, the need to revise the decision-making system at the EU level, at the national level, to make it quicker and faster, the relation with human rights, the obligations of the states vis-à-vis their citizens, the need of international cooperation, the question of the financial aspects, with special attention to the vulnerable groups. This has also been discussed several times, the increased role for cooperation between the United Nations and the European Union, setting the priorities, preparedness you mentioned, the need of proper communication. This has also been the topic of one of our master classes, and the future foresight. I think this was a wonderful way for summing up a little bit many of the topics which have been discussed. And I think that this is a unique opportunity for all of us to bring our ideas and our recommendations and the topics we have discussed to the decision maker, because in this very moment you are a decision maker, a policy maker, and we are sure that you and the whole decision-making community will benefit of the discussions which happened here. So thank you once more so much for being present. We consider this a great honor, and we are really very, very pleased that you have been able to make it, notwithstanding your very busy agenda. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, now we continue with our program, and I would like and be honored and pleased to give now the floor to Prisca, who has been one of the more active and most active participants to the different activities, plenary and master classes. Prisca, you have the floor.
Okay. Well, first of all, it were 2.5 fantastic days, I think. I can talk for everybody. We all enjoyed ourselves here very much. And I first want to thank DG ECHO for inviting us, because that's why we are here. But I really want to thank Professor Andrea Guthrie to give us the occasion to stay in this very beautiful historical place, and for his team that were really good hosts in every aspect. But it was not only a host in a technical way. He was also a host because he is part of our community. And I was very surprised to hear that there are 250 international laws that apply to disaster risk management. So I learned something new. And it's frightening, I think. I'm, since January, I'm part of the commission too. I'm part of DG RTD working on research for climate adaptation. So it is, the word climate adaptation was used very often, and I'm pleased to be also a member of this network because we are working on the same thing. And I just want to tell you that the mission on climate adaptation, 388 regions subscribed to the fact that they want to have their region climate adapt, and the Commission will help 75 regions to be climate adapted in 2030. But we have the same problems you have. Communication, what is the risk on a regional level? So I was very pleased to see here some experts on climate, on risk, and on finance that are similar projects we are looking at. And so I think many of us learned a lot, and that there are more, it is even more complex than we thought. So I think 6 master classes were already a lot. I'm afraid that there will be some more questions and will be even more complex. So there is room for a next meeting anyhow. And another thing I will bring back is this hybrid. I think it was of everything that was said about communication, hybrid people have to be more vocal, are needed to do this translation and to communicate between the two groups, that we are all friends, but sometimes we don't understand each other. The thing that frightens me also, that a decision maker can be brought to court after a disaster. And as scientists, as hybrid people, we have to help the decision maker take the right decision, that he is not in such a vulnerable situation. I hope I transferred some of the feelings you have to in this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Priska. I hope that you don't feel threatened too much by the 250 conventions and by the fact that there are now quite a lot of cases against government for not having done quite what they were supposed to do on the basis of international obligations related to disaster and management. This is the reality, but I like very much your underlining the complexity of the topics and the fact that we need to have persons who not are expert of all the topic we have examined during the master classes, but they have some kind of awareness of the political consequences, the legal aspects, the economic, the financial issues, and so on, if they would like to be able to really provide good indications to the decision maker or to take sound decisions. Thank you once more very much, Priska, also for your active participation. Now it's my greatest pleasure to pass the floor to Tom de Goe for the closing presentation. You have already had the opportunity to meet him in the opening session, so I don't need to introduce him, but you have the floor.
Thank you, Andrea. And so thanks a lot for the opportunity to give some final remarks. On behalf of, so we are the co-lead of the science pillar of the Knowledge Center, no? The DG ECHO and GRC together try to make this work, this animal of the knowledge network, and under there, the science pillar, where science meets policy. I think it was an excellent event, and thanks a lot to all those that made it work. Yourself, the Santana University, the, what's it called? Civitas Soteria, yes. And the colleagues, of course, of DG ECHO, and my own colleagues of the GRC that organized some master classes and everybody that was involved. So I think it was a very successful event. From what I hear, from what we hear from the feedback from the participants, it is really what we aimed for, no? To have this connection. So I would also like to share basically what I learned. We made this event possible, and we really thought hard now on how to structure it based on the lessons from the first summer school. Now this is the second one, and of course we'll take all your input for the third one to make it always better. But I think I was also a participant, and I really tried to be here the whole time too. I think it's important to participate in these events, not organize the meeting space for all of you, but also really participate in it to learn from it. And I did learn a lot. For sure, new people. Many of you I didn't know. We did many events before, and every time it's different people from the member states. And of course, it's normal that there's so many people involved in this whole area. It's good that it's always new people and that the messages about science policy interface are actually spread always to new people. So we have new people. I think all of you met new colleagues, perhaps have a new connection that you can follow up and you can learn from something. I really like also the contact with the member states, with you directly, because often at the EU level, there's also a bubble, no? Everybody works in bubbles, and we have to break the barriers there. And that's not easy. It requires meeting. It requires lots of talks. It requires, what did we show in the survey before? We have trust, a couple of meetings, 6 months to several years maybe before you have this. No? But very important, because I think the semesters and when there's a presidency of countries, it's very important to work together also on the area of science for policy, science for practice. I would like to see from the point of view of the GRC and together with the GECO, very strong events on this, that we continue on what we discussed today, and that this is really continuously being driven as an area for discussion under the president. So it was very nice to meet the colleagues of Spain, obviously, but also Belgium and Hungary for the thinking of what the ideas could be for the next year. Ideas is the second. We heard many ideas. I think that 6 topics were excellent this year. I don't know what you think, but it's all topics that brought us out of our box, and that is the point. You can be really an expert in your own field, but in the end, it's to understand that you're not an expert in all the fields, and you have to be humble and be able to have a conversation with people from other countries, other disciplines, other scientific or the sectors, etc. I like that foresight came up as an area of common interest of the participants here, showing that we know a lot what we know, but we don't really know what we don't know, and there's an interest of knowing what we don't know in a way. So those are techniques and topics that perhaps require a bit more attention. And at the GRC, we have really a strong plan on linking foresight to disaster risk management, those two. We work in a very interconnected way across units, and with the unit here that facilitated the masterclass, we have plans to publish a report on this area. So all the work that you've done, because you've thought about the future, you've built the future wheels, and this is repeated also in other contexts, will be brought back into this process of trying to make sense of this. So you can expect some output on that for sure. And finally, I think it was mentioned a lot that there's a lot already available, reports and tools. Tools are available, but sometimes we don't know how to use them. And training came up often as a very key thing. We should have more training, or so I think that's also very important for us as the GRC. We produce a lot of those tools. The Copernicus early warning systems, the Copernicus mapping systems, the risk data hub about data that can be very useful at local level. There's now recently a vulnerability scoreboard added to that with the Committee of the Region. So there's a big interest in this data, but of course it must be accessible and usable by local authorities, regional authorities, etc. It's not that you make it and everybody will be able to use it. And I think it's the same I've heard this from many of you that this is an important part. So learned a lot of things. I think you learned other things during the coffee. I tried to see what you learned. But also a question I asked a lot to you was, what will you do now? I hope it doesn't stop here. We invested in you. Organizing this event has a cost, of course, in terms of time, of people and the energy, but also a real cost. But it's worth it. No, this has to be worth it. We have to invest in you to bring some change, to do an action, to go home and do something. And I heard really nice things of some of you that will follow up and build conversations with others. So I will definitely do that. I will keep the space open for these type of discussions. We have the Disaster Risk Management Knowledge Center space where we continuously produce these type of products. We have, of course, the Knowledge Network website, and a lot of news and conversations should continue there. We will internalize. The question was, what will the Commission do with the output of this? Yes, I think we will do things in the GECO, definitely in JRC too. Our work plan will be adapted. We will try to address maybe some of the things. But it's also what you will do, and that is a very strong point I want to make. This is not really for the European Commission. This is really for you. It's for the European Union in the end. So this internalizing, I think, is an important point. I hope you reflect on this too. How will you do it? And it would be useful to have some feedback in case you bring it. You have thanks to this, maybe something happens. You bring the message. That you share this also with the Knowledge Network as a good practice, maybe for others. And finally, I will work on, together with the colleagues, planning the third summer school, but also the annual seminar that will be in the fall, the future events of this community with you or with colleagues from your country, to make these events really interesting, and thanks for your feedback for this. I think that's useful to do them better. I liked foresight, and these topics came up, but also the smiley face. Now, the smiley face was one of the biggest feedbacks we got from all of you, and it's important to create events that are pleasing, also that create an environment where you are relaxed and can speak to each other, not in a formal setting where there's difficult decisions to make, but in an informal setting where the beauty of the environment also inspires you to think out of the box. So as an outcome, I think, if I could summarize what I take from these 3 days, it's that the personal development of all of you has been very important, and I hope I think you rated it 4 out of 5. No, it's a good personal development. We can still improve, and we want to have your feedback on that. But that is one thing. It's a school, so it was an environment where we wanted you to learn. The other thing would be organizational change. Slowly, this is part of the bigger picture of bringing knowledge in the Union Civil Protection Mechanism, now to make it important, central, that we don't react necessarily to things, but we think about them before, simply said. So the Knowledge Network has that purpose. This summer school is part of that. So we, of course, hope to see this in organizational changes. And I had some good discussions also with some of you where there's things going on and how this school actually can inspire the actions there. So very keen to work more with you on implementing the disaster resilience goals, some of those aspects, and the Green Deal in general, of course. We have to adapt quicker, faster, smarter, to stay within the planetary boundaries, like I mentioned in the first intervention. Very, very big challenges that, we can move faster if we talk to each other and if we have a good understanding of what needs to be done. And that's it. Finally, I would like to ask you to keep sharing your news with this. You're part of a network, so it only works if you participate and if you share the news in the newsletter. Maria Lira here is, I think she left already, but in Arthur's team. And ourselves at the JSC, we're always very welcome to hear from you, keen to hear from you, and we can definitely bring your news into the bigger community. So this is a bit the reflection I would have, Andrea, from my side. So thanks a lot on behalf of the European Commission of being here, of taking the time of coming here, and hope to see you in all the future events we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for your very kind words. Thank you as well for having once more highlighted that you are ready and interested to receive comments, suggestions from this wider audience. I think now the ball is in our hands and that we have to answer positively and suggest them, give them good ideas and suggestions, consider they are very much interested in listening to us and having new ideas. Thank you as well for having decided to stay 3 days, the whole period of the summer school. I think it's quite unusual that someone at your level of seniority attends the full event from the very beginning to the end. And we see this as a sign of interest and a commitment. And I'm very grateful as well that you have decided to bring with you a quite big delegation of your staff, of the Commission, DG ECHO, JRC. I think they were precious in both in the discussion and in creating additional relation with the participants. Before going to the very last words, I would like just to remind you a few logistical aspects. First of all, as anticipated by Arthur earlier this morning, we will work on a document which we call Good Practices and Guidelines, which will be based on existing good practices and guidelines related to the topic of this summer school. We have started the preparation. It will be enriched through the cases which have been discussed in the different master classes. And we hope that we will be able to share it, first of all, obviously, with in the consortium and then with DG ECHO and then with all of you. The idea is to offer you a document which you can reflect or you can share with your colleagues working with you as some concrete output of this event. And we have been inspired to do this because this was one of the suggestions coming from the previous summer school. The participants, they were very happy about the summer school, but they were suggesting, let us bring something home we can then further use at the later moment or share with other colleagues. So to disseminate the results of all of this. I would like to remember that all the presentations, all the pictures which we have taken, all the final reports will be available on the shared folder. We will put them as well on the website of the Scuola Sant'Anna. We will let you know where you can download even in the future, including the recording of the 2 plenary sessions. So if anyone is interested, you will find the recording of the general, of the 2 plenary meetings. Having said this now, let me, as this is necessary and relevant, express my most sincere gratitude. If you don't mind, first of all, to DG ECHO for having given the task to the Civitas Soteria Consortium and then to Scuola Sant'Anna to organize this event. We were very proud. We are happy to organize it. I have to tell you, Tom, that we were very much impressed about the quality of your staff. And if you don't mind, I would like to mention specifically Arthur and JP. We had, since the very beginning, the idea that they wanted to create a team spirit to work together, to have a product which is a common product. We had a lot of very interesting and challenging discussions. I think we have at the end been able to deliver what we were supposed to do. But I appreciated very much the incredibly quick reaction capability of both Arthur and JP. I mean, whenever we had a problem, it was solved after 2 minutes through an email exchange. I very much appreciated the way they are open-minded and they were listening to our ideas and we were listening to their ideas. And at the end of the day, I think we have improved very much the initial idea of the summer school. We appreciated the flexibility because we had to be flexible, and your pragmatism. We had to face various situations. As you can imagine, in an event bringing together almost 100 people, you need to be pragmatic. But first of all, or last but not least, we appreciated very much your commitment. We had a clear feeling that you were really trusting that this is something relevant, important, and you wanted to contribute to make this a good event. So thanks to all of you. Thanks to your staff. And if you don't mind, I would like to pass on behalf of my rector a small sign of our recognition. This is a tie, which has been done, the tie of the Scuola Sant'Anna. So it's an official tie, which has been done for us by Ermenegildo Zegna, which you may know him, so that you can do in the future remember a little bit something of this summer school.
Thank you. So good.
I would like to I don't know about. Secondly, let me express my sincere gratitude as well to the ICF and the Consortio Civitas Soteria, and to all the partners of the consortium and all the civil protections which are part of our consortium. Special thanks obviously to Petra, first of all, and to Maria Joao for the incredible work they have done to help us to design and especially to implement significant parts of this summer school. It is always a pleasure to work together. We are involved in quite a lot of different activities, so we continue to be pleased about your cooperation. Third, I would like to express my most sincere thanks to all the speakers and master class coordinators and master class assistants for their work. I was really impressed of the quality of the contribution, and I think, and on the methodology used, especially in the master classes, so to make it not too boring, but as well interactive, and to pass not only knowledge, because I mean, there is only limited knowledge to be shared, but to share as well cases or experiences, and we are very, very much indebted to all of them. And let me as well thank all the service providers who have helped us to make this event hopefully successful, from the guides who have been bringing you to the Piazza dei Miracoli, to all the staff involved in the canteen and in providing the good food. I hope at least that it was good, to the restaurant, to the quartet which entertained us on the first day in the evening at the concert, and all the staff of the Scuola Sant'Anna who is behind this kind of event. Special thanks obviously to those who have been more directly involved in supporting me in the design and then in implementation of this project. So I'm very much indebted to Chiara and to Luca, who have helped us very much in contributing to shaping the content. And and obviously many, many thanks to Matteo Bartolini. He has been officially the logistical officer, but he has done much more. I mean, he is really behind if everything went more or less smoothly from a technological point of view, from an organizational point of view. He is the one who deserves the applause. And thank you as well, because he is the producer of the video. Thank you, Matteo. Well done. Last but not least, I would like to express my most sincere thanks to all of you who have decided to spend 3 days in Pisa. We know that you have all busy agenda, and we know that in a certain number of European countries, it has been a holiday period, so that we basically took the holidays and you invested your holidays in coming to Pisa. We were really very impressed about your participation, the level of interaction, especially in the master classes. So we hope that at the end of these 3 days, you will be happy in any case, and that you feel that you have well invested these 3 days. Now, to finish with, there has been a question coming from Ton. What do we do next? I consider me as well one of those who should give an answer. As far as Scuola is concerned, I can commit ourselves that we will continue. First of all, to carry out researches in different fields related to disaster management, not only in the legal, political aspects, which are obviously at my heart, but as well, we are working quite a lot in the new technologies, and in different areas related to disaster management. So we continue to carry out research. We continue as well to be more than interested in supporting and training activities. As you know, we are delivering quite a lot of training courses for the DG, for the Union Civil Protection Mechanism, especially the CMI and now UNI courses. We are involved in other activities, and we continue to confirm that we would be more than happy to continue this cooperation. Last but not least, I would like to take the opportunity to express my thanks as well to those who are following us from distance, because as you know, this session is being offered free of charge on YouTube, and therefore we have a limited number, but I think we are very grateful to those who have been following us via YouTube. Having said this, I would like to remind to all of you that you are more than welcome now to attend the lunch. And let me just say that we wish all of you a safe flight home. And let me just remind to you that Scuola Sant'Anna, as a public university, we are open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So should it happen in the future that you come to Pisa with your family for tourist reason, don't forget to knock at our doors. It is always nice to see old friends. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the lunch. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Very nice. Thank you. Super nice. Thanks. Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to that was on the commission, so I wanted to give some breakdowns. I wanted to give somebody a floor, and then I said, okay.
Thank you.